You know, that idea when you spill salt, you throw it over your shoulder. Well, initially you threw it over your left shoulder. I don't know if you guys know the proper way, because demons and evil and spirits came from your left side. And salt was a way to keep them away. And so you threw salt over your left shoulder. The Latin word sinistra was taken into English as sinister. Originally meant left, obviously, and came to mean evil. And this kind of thing happens all over the world. In Ganda, in their native language, if you say somebody slept on the left side, it means they died. It is a terrible insult to people to offer your left hand to shake with, or to serve them food with your left hand. If you come up to a group of people and you're going to shake hands with them, you don't start on the left side. You must start on the right side to go around. And it's this concept of duality applied in different ways, viewed in different ways. And that reminds me of the Chinese rich man. Well more than 1,000 years ago. And his family had been okay, but he had really developed it. He had put his life into gaining all of these physical things, this wealth, and he made himself this huge estate that was walled in, and he had all this wealth, and he's getting older, and he said, you know, I've spent my life on the material things, and now I need to turn to the spiritual. He says, how shall I go about this? And he went to a Confucian scholar and said, you know, I want to now reach enlightenment. How do I go about this? And the scholar said, well, you know, all things are made of yin and yang. And yang is the good, and yin is the evil. And the way you become enlightened is to increase the yang in your life and banish the evil, the yin. So the guy went back and he thought, and he talked to people and said, okay, what are these two? And they said, well, yang is light and yin is dark. And he said, then we must, in my estate, have only light. And so he took all of the rooms, and if there wasn't enough light, he knocked holes in the walls. And at night, he would burn fires outside in the walls, but in every room, they had to have a fire burning all of the time. There had to be light. And then he said, well, let's see. Yang is heat, and yin is cold, and so all food must be served warm now. And so all of the fresh fruits and vegetables, you couldn't eat them that way anymore. Cooks had to come up with some way to cook them. They had to be hot. People living there in the estate with him weren't getting real happy. He said, white is yang and dark is yin, and therefore from now on everything must be white. And all of the rooms were painted white, and if there were pictures, they either had to paint over them or get over. All of the people with their colorful clothing, they had to get rid of all of it and only wear white. Well, probably a lot of you don't know this, but one of Belle's ancestors was from China and lived there. And of course, everything she had was wild colors. She was very upset. She had to get rid of all of it. You could only wear white. And then eventually he said, I'm not getting there. And they said, well, let's see. Man is yang and woman is yin. And so we're going to have to put all of the women outside the estate. And made just this little house for them. The women were getting pretty upset by this time. And so they went to this Taoist sage and said, you've got to help us with this. So the sage went to the man, met him outside the estate, and all the women were there. And he says, I understand that you have been increasing yang and banishing all yin to find enlightenment. And the man said, yes. And he asked him about it, and he explained all the things he did. And the sage says, that is magnificent. You are almost there. This didn't make the women too happy. But he said, there's one you've missed. And when you get this one, you will reach enlightenment. And he said, right is yang and left is yin. And so you must get rid of the left and keep only the right. He said, let's start with the staff you have. If I can get his staff. And so his son, who was this big, strong guy, came out and said, break this staff in half, get rid of the left side and keep only the right. And so he broke it and threw away the left side. And the sage said, there, now you have reached enlightenment. You've reached that state because your staff has only the right side. He looked at it and he said, you know, I know your son thought he was doing it, but hold that staff up. It has a right side and a left side. You messed up, break it again. Get rid of the left side. And he said, wait a minute. Your staff still has a right side and a left side. And he says, this is the truth that you've missed. He said, there is no such thing as yin, and there is no such thing as yang. These are but aspects of the one, the Tao. And you can't get rid of one without the other. That's like having a front without a back. You know, having an up without a down. What you can do is seek balance. And know that all things take their shape. And some have more yang and some have more yin. But you must find balance, not one over the other. But you know, our Christian heritage is one that's just like that. Because we're taught there's some ultimate good. And therefore, there must be some ultimate evil. And what our task in this life is to find only this good and get rid of everything that's evil. And so we go about labeling things as good and evil, and we try to destroy those things that are evil. And you know, I think sometimes all of us are that Confucian scholar. And all of us think at some time we can do that. And we think in our treatments and in our enlightened state that somehow we can determine certain things are good and certain things are evil. And we can bring only good and get rid of everything we don't like. But it's not life. Life is the balance. And sure, we can seek things we want. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know, I would rather have chocolate than lima beans. You know, but sometimes you're going to have lima beans. And you eat them and you go on. And they aren't evil.
Yes, they are.
You'll work with it. There's a balance in life. And so, you know, you can spend your life worried about the monsters. And you can think that there's evil monsters waiting out there in the dark. And that if you get out of the light of God, these evil monsters are going to get you. And that's okay, that's your choice. But you can also realize that the light and the dark are both part of God. That there is nothing that is not a manifestation of divine spirit. And birth and death, they're both part of it. And wellness and illness and abundance and lack, you know. It's not that we can't seek one over the other. It's not that we can't say, I would rather have this. It's when we label them as this is good, this is right, and this is wrong. This is divine spirit. Here it is. Take it, find your balance, and leave those monsters alone.